Okay, this video is going to look at the final criteria, interpretation and evaluation. Now I'm going to talk about this second part of the ISMG page before I get to the conclusion. So, to get a 5 or 6, what you need to do is you need to show critical evaluation of your experimental processes. And the way you demonstrate that is by a justified discussion of the reliability and validity of the experimental process. So you need to think about reliability is how accurate and precise your results were, and validity is did you actually test what you think you were testing or what you set out to test. So you might need to do a little bit of research around these words. So you are going to have to show that by a thorough and appropriate identification of the limitations of your evidence. You're going to have to comment on the ability of your methodology to produce the data to answer the research question. So that's with this validity one. Did you actually test what you set out to test? You're going to have to discuss the errors, whether they're systematic or random errors, and if the ones that are relevant to the research question and the impact on the data. So we'll have a look at that part of it first. So what I've got over here, what I suggest you do is you state the limitation of the method or the error and define it as random or systematic. So you could have a random error like temperature changes in the room due to the air conditioner turning on and off. Like if you were testing, like if you weren't testing temperature, you were changing the concentration, so you were trying to keep your temperature the same and the room actually kept changing temperature, well, that would be a random error that you didn't control. Okay, so you talk about that, and then you say how that would affect your data, particularly the accuracy, reliability, and validity. So the room temperature changing is going to affect your data because temperature, as we know, has an effect on the rate of reaction. So that is going to affect the accuracy of your data because it could be different every time. Okay, if there are large changes, that could affect the validity of your data. Say halfway through your experiment, someone turned the air conditioner off, and so the room temperature went from 25 degrees Celsius up to 30 degrees Celsius. That's going to have a big effect on your data. So then what I suggest you do to get this next part of the ISMG, it says suggested improvements and extensions which are logically derived from the analysis of the evidence. So what I suggest you do is for every limitation that you put forward, you suggest an improvement for that limitation. So for instance, with my room temperature change example, perhaps the air conditioner needs to stay set to 25 degrees and the room needs to be all sealed up properly so that you can control the temperature better. And then finally, extensions is this next bit down here. Extensions that identify specific modifications that will provide further insight and complement the findings of the experiment are considered. So my suggestion would actually be make your extensions related to your parameters. So if you tested a range of temperatures between let's say 20 degrees and 40 degrees, well, perhaps you could extend that range. So you could say, all right, well, I know what relationship exists between 20 and 40 degrees, but does this same relationship exist if I go up to 60 degrees or if I go down to 0 degrees? So that way you're just expanding your knowledge on how temperature affects the rate of reaction. Like, does it still continue at the same rate? So that would be my suggestion for the limitation section. Now, in your template, it does show that extension should come after the conclusion, and you can do that. I just like to put it all together because I feel like it's all related. All right, the last bit, the justified conclusion. So you need to use evidence from the experiment, you need to summarise your findings, and you need to relate back to the relevant concepts and theories. So make sure you answer your research question. So back here, my research question, might have been how does changing the concentration from 0.1 molar hydrochloric acid to 1 molar hydrochloric acid affect the time taken for the X to disappear when sodium thiosulfate and hydrochloric acid are reacted? So if that was my question, down here, I want to answer that. So I want to say, as the concentration of hydrochloric acid increased, then, and say what happened. I'm going to justify using data from my results. I'm going to give a couple of examples, and then I'm going to back that up with the scientific theory that I introduced in my rationale. And I'm going to explain why changing the concentration did change the rate of reaction, just briefly. And then finally explain any limitations to your conclusion. So if I decide that as concentration increases, the rate of reaction increases, or the time taken for the reaction to occur decreases, my limitation is that I only tested up to 2 molar. So if I didn't test 3 molar, I don't actually know if that relationship continues. Like, does it continue forever as the concentration gets greater and greater? Does it just speed up and speed up, or is there a time when it plateaus out? We don't really know that. So you need to make sure you include your limitations, which could be due to your parameters.